And welcome to Capital Talk, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya. Now, more than ever, I'm Jeff Koinange. Now, all this week, if you've been watching Capital Talk, you know we're talking to folks that we call living saints. People who go out of their way to do things they need not do. They do them because they have to do them without expecting anything in return. All week long, we've had what we call male saints. Today, sit back. It's a heart-wrenching story of a wife, a sister, a mother. Because a year ago, on January 5th, 2009, she rushed her husband to Kenyatta National Hospital, who was in desperate need of dialysis. This after Nairobi Hospital told her to cough up some 600,000 shillings, which of course she didn't have. She was in casualty for about 6 hours or so. Her husband started developing complications, and still the nurses, doctors kept walking past. He died right there in casualty. Fast forward almost 5 months to the day, June 6th, the same year, her brother, a very active basketball player, had some chest problems. Went to several hospitals, ended up again at Kenyatta, needing urgent medical attention, needing to go into ICU. But he was in casualty again, 6-7 hours. Finally, they put him in a bed and they kind of forgot about him. In fact, he died right there on the bed. And to make matters worse, they dumped that body and the whole bed where they put their dirty linen, just so that no one could see. Yet another victim of our hospital services. My guest decided it was time to take on the entire medical system. That's what she did. She started her own foundation. She calls it the Morris Moses Foundation, named after her brother and her husband. She says, healthcare is a priority in this country, but our leaders simply are not taking it seriously. That's the bottom line. She's gotten a lot of support from locals, but she needs more support. People need to wake up to the fact that if you get sick in this country, you're going to die. That's the bottom line. She's a real fighter, folks. A Florence Nightingale of the 21st century. Sit back, folks. Listen to Alice Naserian Mwongera. Alice, good to see you. Welcome to the bench.
Thank you.
Yours is a, for lack of a better word, it's a horror story.
It is a horror story, Jeff. It is.
And you haven't given up.
In fact, I keep telling people, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So what happened to me, to my family, has just given me the resolve to fight about the issues of healthcare in this country. Because I realized that is what is happening to many other Kenyans. It is a story of so many Kenyans. But I didn't know about it until it hit me. And that's why we are telling Kenyans, today it's my story, tomorrow it will be your story. So let us rise up and say we hate it. We are not just criticizing, we want to do something about it.
Speaking of your story, Alice, and I know a lot of Kenyans will associate with your story. Tell us your story from the start when your husband got sick with kidney failure.
Yeah, my husband was diagnosed with a kidney failure in November of 2008. And like any middle Kenyan family, was being treated in the private hospitals. But at some point, we exhausted our insurance. And guess what? When you exhaust your insurance, you can only support yourself from your pocket for very few days. So we ended up, this day, January 5th, the Nairobi hospital asked us to go to Kenyatta for dialysis. Well, not really the hospital itself, the doctor who was seeing him asked us to go to Kenyatta Hospital. And we did. That was the first time I was going to KNH. I'd never been there. You can imagine, I'm 40 years, and in this country all these years, I had never been to KNH. So I went to the casualty. And guess what? The first thing was shock. Had the many people in the casualty. And I'm wondering, my goodness, where do you start?
Are they lying all over the floor? Are they?
Well, they are benches. They have benches these days. Well, some are sitting on the benches. Others are lying on stretchers. Others are on the floor. But it is really a complicated place. You really don't even know where to start. So there I was, and I tried to figure out. I went to the small place over there and, tried to tell them the story of this man. He was so swollen. He was so swollen because he needed immediate dialysis. But of course, it's not an emergency for them. Well, fast forward, 6 hours later, he had not been attended to. They actually attended to him when he started gasping. It's like, the potassium levels had risen so high, so he was suffering a heart attack. That's when the doctor came and these nurses, and they tried to push me aside, took him to a small room over there called the acute room. But he died.
Right there?
He died right there. He died right.
What did they say?
Well, it was chronic renal failure. That was, I knew he was suffering from a kidney problem. But you see now when you have a kidney problem, you need dialysis again and again. So when it did not happen, and the potassium levels, potassium is some mineral in the body, I don't understand this language so well, but when it gets to some level, very high levels, it kills, it causes heart attack.
Could he have been saved had he been attended to earlier?
Of course, if he had gone through dialysis earlier, he would have been saved. He would have been saved. But anyway, like a good Kenyan, or like every other human being, I'm like, this is God's will. So I went away, buried my husband, and went back to my life, only to be thrust in the same position 5 months later. How? My last born brother, Maurice, 29 years, a basketballer, very vibrant, suddenly has a chest problem. Where from? We could not tell, but I guess this was God's way of telling me, hey, I'm trying to send a message to you and you're not paying attention. So he was admitted in Metropolitan Hospital, but within hours Metropolitan Hospital said he needs to be in ICU because his chest is so congested. Metropolitan Hospital is a small hospital, they don't have an ICU. So there we were again, I was up country. So we called Nairobi Hospital to find out how much it will cost us to get him to ICU there. They said we needed 600,000.
$500,000?
More than $500,000.
Just to get to ICU?
To get into ICU. And of course, you can imagine I was already so helpless. It was just 5 months after the death of my husband. And, you know, I felt so sad. Aga Khan is about 350, MP4 is 300 shillings. Definitely, who has that kind of money? And if it is being demanded up front, probably they can allow you to admit, and then you can go try to sell a cow or a goat here and there. But that is not allowed. That is what you have to cough up front. So again, there we were.
At the same casualty?
We had now to transfer him to Kenyatta Hospital. If you don't have the money for the private hospitals, where else do you go? KNH. So I was not there. We were up country for a funeral of an uncle. So a sister-in-law of mine got him from the Metropolitan Hospital and brought him to Kenyatta. But by the time we arrived from up country, 8 p.m. in the night, he had been brought to Kenyatta at 2 p.m. He was still lying at the casualty on a bed, delirious. He had not been attended to. And this time I thought somebody needs to lose their job. How can this guy have been here from 2 to 8? And nobody had spoken to him. He had the papers from Metropolitan in his jacket saying he needs to be in ICU immediately. So we tried to harass a nurse and a doctor over there. Of course, they brushed us aside. In fact, I dared one nurse, I really need to know your name because I need to report to somebody. And she actually showed me her badge. You can go report where you like. That's the attitude in these hospitals. So you can imagine Jeff, so desperate. Nairobi Hospital is across the road where you can get the immediate care. Yet, because you do not have the money, this is where you're stuck.
So what did you do?
I had to wait. What else do I do? I just had to wait, harassing them until eventually at 11 p.m. one doctor came.
From 2 p.m.?
Yeah, from 2 p.m. This is 11 p.m. So the doctor was like, "Sasa huyu naye ni nini?" We said this guy has been here since 2 p.m. and the papers from Metropolitan clearly shows that he needs to be in ICU. He has been referred from Metropolitan to be in ICU. By this time, my brother had already gone into a coma. He was not talking, he had just blacked out. Whatever it is, it had made him go into a coma. He was just gasping for breath. So the doctor was like, and then after CT scan, then tutaangalia ni nini. Of course, we didn't know much about that hospital, but here we looked around, we were able to get the CT scan. But to get that CT scan read was at 2 a.m. It's an entire night. And eventually the doctor says, "Mi sioni kitu." And by the way, to get him to read it, to follow him everywhere he's going, and you're like, excuse me, no, you're already so fearful because this boy is in a coma, just gasping for breath. So eventually he read the scan and he was like, sioni kitu, lakini mkitaka ni muadmit nitamuadmit. I said, tukitaka umuadmit. Metropolitan says he needs to be in ICU. You can see he's already in a coma. Then he said, mtafute kitanda mkipata tutamuadmit. And I'm like, where do you look for